Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun,
Dun,
dun, dun, dun, dun.
Do, do, do. Boo, 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 boo. Okay, I'm okay.
I didn't realize we were doing the whole
Wow.
fucking thing.
Fucking wow.
I only did a couple of dun-duns.
Yeah, I tried somewhat.
All right. Andrew, take it from here. Balls in
only
your
go
court.
Yeah, all the balls are in your court, boy.
Okay, well, I don't see how I could ever surpass that. Anyways, so, hello everyone. This is Beyond the Silver Screen. I am Andrew. Jesus Christ.
Wait, let it sit for a minute. It's like a
we are
Tarkovsky
going
movie.
the Tarkovsky way and the Kubrick way.
Yeah, no,
It's
we're
part of
doing
the
Tarkovsky mode.
ambiance.
We have to, give it a couple of minutes, and
sink
then we'll
in.
say the next name.
I'm Einish.
I'm Alex.
I am Oleg.
And I will be
Perfect.
editing this in post. So,
The hell you will, bitch. It's me editing.
that's what you think. So, no, it's definitely still you. You do a great job.
That's
So here we
debatable.
are.
Yeah.
Jesus, guys.
I do a hack job, but it looks good because it's better than nothing. And you know it.
Amen, Reverend. Okay, so on this week, for Beyond the Silver Screen, we will be discussing Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey and Andrei Tarkovsky's response known as Solaris, which is based off a novel, but is also very obviously a response to what Tarkovsky believed to be a very lifeless and humanless film. So, here we go. We'll get into it. We'll talk a little bit about 2001 first, and then we'll talk a bit about Solaris. And we'll do some comparison between the two and see which one we think stacks up better. I think there's a good amount of division between us today on this, so you should hear some arguing.
Oh
which
boy,
will
there will
fun.
be. There will be.
Yeah. Oh,
Very
yeah.
excited.
Okay, so shall we just give a
So-
plot rundown
yeah.
of 2001?
That's not an easy job, buddy.
I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
I've,
I can try.
Andrew should do it.
I can try.
Because
Wait,
he
no,
clearly likes
I
it the
wanna try.
most out of all of us.
yeah, I've seen the movie 4 times in theaters, and I've also just
Wait.
watched it in general probably a dozen times.
I think we should.
so.
I think we should do a plot rundown by somebody who is ambivalent towards it, and then have it be like, okay, you remember half the movie.
That's true, but also, like, I feel like
I-
2001's the kind of movie that you have to see more than once before
Yeah,
you understand
so,
what the heck the basic
the
plot
movie
is
opens
anyways.
with like monkeys fucking monkeys and shit for about like 45 minutes, and that I don't remember.
It's only like
anything.
25
No,
minutes.
I'm
you know.
kidding.
Yeah. I'm gonna say yeah. No, I actually just watched it this morning. So. Yeah, and that was probably I think my third watch through, and the second one that I was awake for.
Fair enough.
Nice.
I saw it for the first time yesterday or 2 days ago.
The first time I watched it, I was in elementary school, and it was
That's
I
a terrible idea.
I got to the point where they threw the bone in the air and passed out.
Nice.
I'm like, dude, it's just music and spinning shit. I'm not doing. I can't do this.
In fairness, I was 12
yeah.
the first time I watched it, and I absolutely fell in love with it, so it can happen.
I feel
it's
like
just
that's how
very
you can
unlikely.
distinguish a film student.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Us
so
pretentious
the-
types, you know how we are.
The film starts with literally 5 minutes of a black screen with music playing, and I timed it. I looked 5 minutes before we get the opening crawl.
Is
or
that
opening
intentional,
credits.
or was that just like a thing that, like, you know, sometimes old movies
Oh no,
did?
that is intentional.
No, it was an
Yeah,
overture
it's
and an
intentional.
entr'acte, so that
Because,
there
like,
could
Dr.
be a-
Zhivago does
yeah.
something just like that. And I'm
Dr.
like, okay.
Just
Zhivago
like-
does it. Lawrence of Arabia does it. Ben-Hur does it.
I'm gonna say, just
My
like
Fair
the
Lady,
interlude
I think,
is
does
intentional.
it as well. It's just it was a very common thing. It was meant to make films seem more like theater and more like grand theatrical production. So they added an overture and an intermission and entr'acte.
I
Yeah,
think they did
yeah,
that in, like,
it's
Suicide
basically,
Squad,
yeah.
too.
It's old
Well, let's
operatic
not speak
form,
about good
essentially.
movies. Today we're
Anyhow.
talking about 2001 and Solaris.
Yeah, you're right.
You're gonna catch some hate for that. But yeah,
I was
so it
not
starts with
speaking
5
seriously,
minutes.
but okay.
You're still catching hate.
5 minutes of music.
I mean, I'm always
Anyhow,
catching hate. That's what I do on this game.
so then we go to monkeys messing around, getting attacked by cheetahs and shit, and then one group of monkeys discovers the obelisk, which is a kind of rectangle thing, and they touch it, and now the monkeys learn that they can pick up bones and hit shit with it, and that makes a pretty good weapon. So then they go and beat the shit out of some other monkeys and throw the bone in the air, and then it's a space station. And that, you can check me on that, it's literally a space station. So then we get some politics shit, where a guy's on a space station trying to hide stuff from a bunch of dirty Russians.
As they should.
A bunch of dirty Ruskies.
You leave half our audience alone.
More like 70-75%, yeah.
Oh, well, no, the other half are self-loathing Russians. So a guy trying to hide stuff from Russians, and that they've discovered another obelisk, or that a obelisk, since humans didn't know it, only the monkeys did, but an obelisk on the moon. And then they go there, they touch it, and a big shriek of sound plays. And then we cut to another spaceship.
That was just Oleg watching the movie.
Yeah, shrieking in the background. Ah! Yeah, and then we get to another spaceship where there's 2 crewmen on board, a robot named HAL 9000, and 3 crewmates held in hibernation, cryosleep. HAL 9000 is reportedly a robot that has no mechanical failures, has never made a mistake in its life, and seems to have almost an emotion, and takes pride in his work, they say. Partway into their journey into space, HAL 9000 makes a mistake in reporting a possible equipment malfunction. And
It's a long summary.
it's a long fucking movie. It's 3 hours!
It's only like
3 hours it is.
Hal makes a mistake. The 2 crewmen talk about unplugging him. Hal discovers them plotting to, essentially cut off his higher functioning, and kills one of them, tries to kill the other, kills all the sleeping crewmen. The one that he tried and failed to kill comes back in. That's Dave. I'm sorry, Dave. And Dave comes in, unplugs Hal, and then goes into creepy baby sleep dream. That's it.
Well, you forgot about the 25 minutes of just flashing colors, and
No, that's a creepy baby sleep dream.
right before that.
Big old baby.
It's right before the creepy baby sleep dream.
Also, I looked up the budget of the movie and the box office, and it has to have just been since it came out in the 60s, most of the box office had to have come from just hippies that got high and then went to the movies, right?
Oh, it was.
Nothing changed.
They specifically changed the marketing for the film at the end of 1968 to specifically target psychedelic imagery so that it would attract people to get high and see it in the theater high.
Yeah,
I was there's no other way this movie would have made to a mainstream audience over $150 million.
It was the highest grossing film to come out in the year 1968.
Wasn't the first poster was just a kind of spaceship in space?
Yeah.
And then the second poster that's more hippie is fucking the scene with where everything's red and you've got a bunch of reflections on his helmet, right?
Yeah, and then they had the eyeball with the various colors, and it said the ultimate trip at the top. So it was not very very hidden with their marketing agenda.
So yeah, who wants to start?
I can. So I'll take that as a go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, go please.
Absolutely.
All right,
not.
Andrew, why don't you go?
No, I want Oleg to go.
I have a rough time with 2001. I don't dislike this movie necessarily, but it's definitely hard for me to watch, and I know it's hard for a lot of other people to watch. To sum up my feelings about it, in short, I guess, there are a lot of creative decisions that were made by Stanley Kubrick, in which he succeeded completely. And that is the reason I hate this movie so much, because I just don't think that they were sustainable decisions for a film. That's
Right.
it. I'll go deeper into that later.
All right, I guess I can give my 2 cents.
All right.
I think it's a great movie. I think it's definitely one that you have to will yourself into sitting through, because it's definitely an endeavor. It's not like some of Kubrick's other stuff where you're like, I am enthralled from the moment I sit down.
Like Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, exactly. When you sit down and watch Clockwork Orange, you're like, I like this. I'm watching this.
Or The Shining, baby.
It's not like, yeah, you don't have to go.
Or Doctor Strange.
Okay.
That's the one for me.
Yeah, okay, so that's the other thing. This movie gave me so many Doctor Strangelove vibes, at least in the first section of it. And I loved it, because I love Doctor Strangelove. So yeah, I really like this movie. I think there is certainly an issue of, or I'm not sure if it's even an issue, but it's an issue to the casual film-going audience of pacing. And I think the ending, I realized that it was his intent to leave it unclear what the ending is, but it should fucking be clear.
Well, honestly, if you read the book and learn what it means, it becomes even more unclear. At the very least, it becomes unclear what drugs were taken in the process of creation.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but Kubrick does not like to stick to the book.
Oh, I'm very aware of that.
I don't think he
specifically said
ever
that his
adapted
ending,
a book.
I don't know what you
even
mean,
though
like,
it is the same thing as
never-
in the book, it doesn't have to be interpreted in the same way that the book goes.
He's never. I don't think he's done a single adaptation where it actually sticks to the book.
No, he does not.
I haven't seen Lolita
Did
yet.
Kubrick make the Percy
No,
Jackson
Lolita's
movie?
very different.
Okay.
Very different.
Lolita, she's actually 20.
Yeah, she is no longer 12 or whatever she was in the book. She is like 16.
Well, I was going to say that might be more for legal reasons.
I will refrain from making any jokes here.
I guess I'll dive into my thoughts at this point.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're doing that.
So,
Alex got distracted.
personally, I really love this movie. I didn't really find a problem with the pacing, where the best way I describe it is slow. Like, it's really slow, but it's never boring, which is kind of a hot take.
I don't agree with that, boy.
Once you get an hour in, I'd agree with that. After the hour mark, then it's true, but...
I actually really like the opening too, and by the end it kind of like wraps up in a way where it's like, oh, okay, I see, kinda. But yeah, the pacing's slow, but I think I found the movie like kind of hypnotizing. I guess that's the best way to put it. Is like, it was like I was like in a trance-like state basically the whole movie, where I'm like, I'm just kind of watching this. All right, yeah, okay, Stargate
So that
sequence.
may have also been the
Okay.
LSD.
That may have been that, yeah. You never know. But I watched this movie completely sober, and I was hypnotized the whole way. The only time I kind of felt it straining was like right after the Stargate sequence, where the ending, I'm like, okay, yeah, now I'm what kind of a thing. I don't think this movie is as good as like Alien or Blade Runner, which are like two other sci-fi kind of heady sci-fi movies, but it's high on my list of sci-fi movies. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
In all fairness, I don't think it's fair to compare 2001 to either Alien or Blade Runner, because they're so
yeah, like
different.
I'm not comparing them story wise. I just kind of meant like in terms of other sci-fi movies that are held in high regard for, the general.
Solaris.
Which, in fairness, is not held in as high of a regard as Stalker, even by most people. So, although I do think Solaris is fantastic. So, I'm going to be the outlier in the group for this one, I think. Like I said, I saw 2001 when I was like around 12. And when it was over, I just sat in like stunned silence for like half an hour. And I couldn't believe it. And it is now my favorite film of all time. I adore this movie. It changed my entire outlook on cinema. I do think it is the best science fiction film of all time.
Have you seen Valerian?
Yes, I saw it twice because you made me see it twice.
Have you seen David Lynch's Dune?
Okay, poor David Lynch, dude. Guy turned down directing Return of the Jedi to make friggin' Dune, and that movie's garbage.
Hey, it's a great movie, but a horrible adaptation.
Okay,
gotta talk
well,
about Dune in
that all
December.
just died, so I'm going to just continue where I left off.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think that 2001: Space Odyssey is by no means a standard film. It's definitely more of an art film than a standard blockbuster, which makes it very unique. I don't think anyone can make a movie like 2001 again because it requires a massive blockbuster budget for a film that is very artistic, very open-ended, and very much not a crowd pleaser in almost any fashion. The visual effects are unmatched in cinema history, in my opinion. I will admit that the pacing is very, very slow. The dialogue occasionally quite boring. The character is not exactly the best developed. So I wouldn't say it's the greatest film ever made, although I will say that it's an amazing achievement for cinema in that it uses visuals and sound and like exclusively that a lot of the time. Over half the movie is dialogue free, so that it really is like one of the epitomes of the art of film, in that it doesn't feel like even though it is a novel, the movie when you're watching it doesn't feel like it could have been a novel. It doesn't feel like it could have been a play. It doesn't feel like it could have even been a set of paintings. It really feels like an actual movie that could only be a movie. And so for that reason, I think it's just one of the pinnacles of cinematic art and cinematic achievement in that way.
I don't know if we are actually doing the hot seat thing, but if we are, I guess it's going to be played for me.
Yeah, because I think the rest of us do like it, or in Andrew's case, love it. So
Alrighty.
Yeah.
I'm ready to take the beating.
So that means that Oleg is in the dun 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 hot seat.
We got to play something. This sounds horrible.
Dude, that's the
Dun dun
only way
dun
to do
hot seat.
that's we just gotta loop that.
We will put it into Audition and just crank up all the bass levels in the equalizer and then just loop it 60 times.
I really dig the Alex's like fake Shao Kahn hot seat.
No, I was gonna say, yeah. Should I do my Ed Boon? Finish him, hot seat.
That is a horrible Ed Boon impression. So I think we're gonna stick with it.
Folks, I would like to inform our general audience that I just received AIDS via Discord.
Probably from me, actually.
Thanks, buddy. Take me to dinner first next time.
It's a little too late for that, don't you think?
It's like what's that South Park episode where it's Cartman keeps going around going, "My mom is fucking me," because she's not giving him what he wants. So he's like, "What do you gotta fuck me, mom?" And everybody in public is going, "Oh my god."
All right. Fucking is a great subject.
It's a great episode.
How are we
Anyway.
going to start this off?
What don't you like about it, Oleg?
All right, so
So that we can tear you
I
apart.
guess that's fair. All right, so I will
We have just touched the
I will
obelisk. We're
voice
ready
my
to tear you
opinion
up.
from the hot seat, and it is that at the end of the day, 2001: A Space Odyssey is a great film, which I personally don't like. And I think it's absolutely fair to say that the cinematography and especially the special effects in this film are groundbreaking and one of the best in the industry up to date. And I think it deserves a lot of credit for that. However, I personally have issue with the fact that many people, and I'm sorry, Andrew, for saying this, hold this movie in a regard that makes it similar to like the Holy Bible. And I think it is, like, despite it being a very good film, I still think it is majorly overrated. Now I will try to explain why. And I guess the reason for me is that film is a very special form of art. When you go to like a ballet or you watch an opera, you expect to get a very historical experience. It's like going to the museum. You may very well enjoy the show, but you're also like transporting yourself to the time when this was the prime like method of entertainment, when people actually did like when it wasn't out of date, when it was very topical. And I am not saying that any opera or ballet or like theater play that is created nowadays is not topical. I'm saying that it always carries like an aspect of history to it. With films, however, I feel like it is a much more consumer art in the modern world, and films should not only be judged on their content, their effects, and even artistic expression, but also a movie should also be judged upon how well it can communicate something to the audience and how well it can keep an audience entertained and like on the edge of its seat. And if you truly love this movie, and if you truly are on the edge of your seat for the whole thing, and you're not bored, and you think the pacing and the editing is always effective, I have no issues with that. You just have a different opinion from me. I personally do not think that, and I know a lot of people who didn't feel that way. I am very often bored shitless by this film, even though I appreciate a lot of stuff about it. And I think that most of the creative choices, as I said in my intro statement, are just counterproductive to making a good film if you try to make a good film from the mindset that I just described. Stanley Kubrick wanted to make a movie that kind of resembles the emptiness and the loneliness and just how nothing space is. And he did just that. And I mean, he succeeded. Do I think that makes for a good movie? To be honest, not really. Stanley Kubrick wanted to explore the possibility of a computer who becomes more human than his creators. Does he succeed at that? Yes, he does. However, that just means that the human characters who are present in the film are boring fucking chills, I'm sorry, who have no characterization and have the most ridiculous, bland, boring dialogue. And, like, the film really consists of small creative choices like that, which are very interesting from an auteur perspective, but lackluster for making a product that will actually be enjoyed by people. Yep.
All right. Somebody want to respond to that?
I guess on the point of the special effects, you said like they were groundbreaking for the time. I feel like they still have like
I said that though.
a lot of like for the time they were great, but I think even for like today, by today's standards, they're still very, very good. Like it almost looks like a modern movie, aside from like a few shots where
there's
I
one
think I
shot where
addressed
the
that.
guy's
I said
spitting
like
off
even
into
up
space.
to now. But
I thought you said up to then. That may have just been me mishearing you.
well, no, I think they were groundbreaking then, and I think they still very much hold up today. I'm sorry if I miscommunicated that.
Yeah, it may have also just been me mishearing you, but yeah, I guess my point was just I think the special effects still look great today, aside from a few wonky bits of. I couldn't tell if it was stop motion or if it was CGI, but it's the one where one of the astronauts is like, was it stop motion?
Yeah. They didn't have CGI back then.
Yeah, they used no computers whatsoever for this film.
Well, they used one.
Oh yeah, they used HAL, but that was about it. There's also a fun fact, HAL is just IBM, but moved everything one letter because they couldn't get the rights to IBM.
Oh, that's actually really funny.
I personally like the story behind how they chose like the voice actor for it, because what were they originally going with before? Like, was it a woman speaking? Like someone with the British.
Oh, Rose
British
Byrne.
accent.
Oh yes, I think you're right. I think they were going for like a British woman.
Yeah, and then they just heard whoever the hell they picked for it just do the voice of like, "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't allow you to do that." And that they said that Kubrick was like so chilled by the voice that he was like, "All right, fuck it, we're going with that. We're going with this like completely like lacking in emotion voice." Yeah.
Is it bad to say that I think Hal gives the best performance in the whole movie? And
No,
he's a
I think
robot?
that's
I
the
think
point.
it's correct, and
Yeah,
that's also
yeah.
something that comes back to my critique of the creative choices in the film.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about it, Oleg, which is that the movie achieved exactly what it was trying to do. So, like, I make this distinction a lot when I talk about different things that you should and shouldn't do in film, where I'll like be saying like, yeah, you shouldn't, go around just breaking the 180 rule all the time. And then I have to add on, but I guess sometimes you have to in order to achieve some, like if you're trying to go for some weird, if that's the point, then you have to. And I think a lot of this movie, the point of it, as Stephen King so definitely put it when he was talking about the Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining, is this is a film to hurt people. It's a movie about man's obsession with violence, right? In that everything, all the tools we make are tools of violence, right? That it all starts there. In that, like anything we make, even if we believe we have the best intentions, right? If we believe that we're making a super intelligent computer so that we can go explore reaches of space we've never before seen, just for the sheer curiosity of it. In reality, it's about we want to go into space and discover far off places so that we can conquer it. And we want to protect the secret of the obelisk from the Russians so that we have this new weapon, just in case it might be a weapon.
I love that through line on the whole weapon thing that you're talking about. Like, at first I had no idea why the 8-bit was like in the beginning, aside from like you got some good ape prosthetics and stuff. But then once they see the obelisk and then they get like, they're like, oh, we can use the bone to fight. And it's like, and then there's that really great cut between the bone spinning to that one spaceship, which I think they actually later said like that was a weapon. Like,
yeah, it's a satellite nuclear weapon.
Yeah, so
which
like,
you can't tell from the film, in fairness. So if anyone misses that while watching it, that's not on you. That's on the filmmakers.
It's a nuclear vessel.
It is a bit hard to get, but I think like with the cut, like the way it's done, like the way that like the location of the bone on like in frame with the weapon, like the space weapon, it's pretty close in alignment. So you're kind of like, okay, weapon kind of thing. It is a bit unclear, but I think through like the cut, it makes sense.
It's a match cut.
Yeah, the match cut.
Yeah, it's a pretty usual technique, I think. Yeah. But I mean, just in general, the entire movie is kind of it's centered around that idea that, and you see this in a lot of Kubrick movies, where I think he really has this obsession and a belief that people are inherently biased towards violence and war. And like you see it a lot in Dr. Strangelove and obviously Clockwork Orange, Shining,
Paths of Glory, Full Metal Jacket, The Shining, Barry Lyndon.
Everything he does, it centers around that idea that even the noblest intentions, quote unquote, you end up devolving into that almost feral state of violence. And like Hal, this perfect computer, is still, like they say it in the movie, there's a good line where they say, does he have emotions? Because it seems like he has pride. And the guy responds, well, it's hard to say. I don't think anybody can really answer that. But we programmed him, at least, to seem like he does. So whether he does or not, we can't tell. But even that machine that we make that's supposed to be perfect and infallible is still made by man. And so the only issues ever occurred in the HAL 9000 are related to man-made issues, is what HAL says. It's human error. So that his fall to violence is also a result of mankind's inherent bias towards violence.
That is very true. I will still have to double down on my position that despite all of those like deep thoughts and great ideas that were put into the film, they don't necessarily make it great.
Yeah, that's fair. You can have the best theming of a movie, and it can still suck some major dick.
And I don't think it does. I really don't think it does.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's like a little dick.
Yeah. It's a little peck. Just a kiss on the head.
But it goes for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Okay, maybe it's multiple pecks.
It's a really
but-
long pack.
Did not want to
Yeah.
hear that.
Slow, methodical peck.
But yeah, I think that those things that you say, those things that are, like you said, he did what he was trying to do almost perfectly. It's just that what he was trying to do, you don't like, you don't think it makes a particularly good movie. So like the kind of inhumanity, the isolation of the characters, where, like you were saying, like the dialogue is mostly bland and uninteresting, and they're lacking in humanity, and that's the point, is that there's not too much separation between the psychotic killer robot and the people on board.
Yeah, and that point is communicated brilliantly, but I don't want to make presumptuous about anyone's experiences with cinema, but I would personally find it really hard to believe if you told me that upon watching Space for like tens and tens of minutes with just classical music in the background, you didn't get ridiculously bored. I would find that hard
I
to
literally said I fell asleep.
Yeah, so like that's kind of my point. I feel
First time I watched
I
it.
feel like as
Yeah.
an experiment, it's amazing, but as a movie, it like if that is not a failure, I don't know what that is.
Well, I'd like to kind of defend, I guess, the endless minutes of just space with classical music. Like, I guess this may just be like my personal taste, but I feel
by the
like
way,
visually, what?
You kind of gimp your argument by starting it out with describing it as the endless minutes of space.
Well, no, like I'm saying, like I totally
doesn't
understand why
catch a
someone
warm
would find
glow.
it boring. Like I totally get why someone would find it boring. Like personally, I don't, but it is a lot of time where it's just like da 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 da, and it's like okay, yeah, what? But the reason I think that it works, however, it's really self-indulgent, but I think it works just because of like the editing and just the cinematography overall in accordance with the like sound work. It's all done so perfectly that like I said in the beginning where like I was almost just hypnotized by the movie. Like all these things are working so well where you're just kind of like staring. I think you kind of just stare in awe at how wow, this looks really good and it's all executed flawlessly basically.
Yeah. And
Is a lot happening like emotionally? No, but
No. And like the slower pace too, like I will admit that like it's hard to like I would imagine the average person that watches this movie would find it boring. I don't. But that's the beautiful thing about art is that no two people experience art the exact same way. So if you don't like something that everyone else seems to like, that's not against you. That's just how art works.
And Andrew, take your postmodernist bullshit out of here.
Hey, it's true.
Yeah, okay.
We don't like your kind.
We either have to all like something or all dislike something if you're not aware of that.
There's
and
there's
if
only
you have problems with
objective
something, that
truth.
means you think it's the worst thing ever.
That's true, actually. Well, in that case, I would hate every single movie because there's not a movie in existence that I don't have problems with. But,
Well, good. You're cynical now. Perfect. Just the way I like it.
bro, I've been cynical. How have you missed this?
A new relationship flourishes.
Aww.
Yeah,
This
no,
is wonderful.
Beyond the Silver
We're bonding
Screen
over
brings
our-
people together. Literally brings people together. Alex uncovered such depths within himself that he never knew existed.
Moving on. So
Let me say deep.
So the visual effects in the movie are quite... I'm not even going to let you talk, Alex. The visual effects in this movie are very slow, and I will admit that. But it
Lord knows
also
I haven't
allows
talked
you
enough.
a lot of time to take in just how much effort was put in. I had seen this movie several times, and it wasn't until I saw it on a 60-foot screen that I noticed that there are individual people walking in the windows of the airplane the first time you see it. And I went again to see it on a TV, and I literally had to sit like with my face right up against the TV to notice they were there. The amount of detail that's put into these visual effects is just absolutely insane. The film was originally shot to be presented on 70 millimeter in Cinerama, which is about 35 feet tall and about 90 feet wide of a screen. So it makes sense that they put in this much effort for it. But the slower pace fixes a problem that a lot of visual effects have, which is they happen so quickly that you can't notice their flaws. And these were so flawless that they were willing to give you the time to look at them.
Yeah, I saw this phone on my iPod, and I gotta say, like, it still looks kind of great on that.
You're a bastard.
Watched on my iPod Mini where it cut off half the screen and still loved it.
I cropped it so like it's just
David
you see
Lynch.
like the center of it, and that's it.
I'll quote David Lynch on this one, which is, "Film is not made to be seen on a tiny screen.
Yeah.
It's not for the go."
What are you gonna do?
Watch a movie on your fucking phone.
But
Yes,
yeah, I'll defend the as Einish puts it, endless minutes of space masturbation. The very masturbatory sequences. I'll defend it too, but I'll put it this way. I think that it captures that very Doctor Strangelove essence, which is it's the beauty of war, right? So a lot of Doctor Strangelove is about drawing that really strange kind of irony out of things, where it's such a horrible thing, but at the same time it's strangely beautiful. And so these, like they have the opening sequence, I think, is basically like I think they're drawing allusions to like the airplanes having sex when they're refueling each other so that one can go and bomb a country.
Yep.
But it's the choice of music, and really I think that Stanley Kubrick is a master of choosing music for scenes, for drawing out these very specifically strange emotions. Which is like here it's that during the space sequences it's always this a ballet, really, more than anything else. It's watching these things, these carefully constructed like sequences of it spinning, and what really it hit me with the ballet scene, or the ballet kind of feeling of it, when in that opening section where he's in this spaceship. And his pen is floating away, and it's just kind of slowly spiraling out, and you see the airplane waitress or hostess, I forget what they're called, like very carefully stepping, and like the steps are made to look like the ballet walking with the kind of inward pointed toes, but it's all very delicate and all very refined. And with the music going in the background, that's what is the actual like kind of ballet sounding thing?
It's
not
the Blue to New
Space
Waltz by
Odyssey.
Johann Strauss II.
I thought it was a waltz, yeah. But yeah, it's yeah. Da, 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 da,
Yeah, the whole
da,
thing.
da, da.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
my third favorite song of all time, so please leave it alone.
That's
No,
the new
I
opening.
wasn't shitting on it. Yeah. But yeah, it's all about the waltz and how beautiful these weapons of destruction are to us. So I'll defend those sequences, even though I do think they're perhaps a little bit overindulgent. It's got a little bit too much of that jazz feel, where it's like, I'll just sit here and wank and show you how good I am for the next hour and a half.
I will slightly butt in here, because I admit that those sequences of endless space, and sometimes those even boring dialogues and the monkey sequences in the film, are all very delicate and creative. But at the same time, what purpose do they really serve that makes them have to be like 45, like 25 minutes long? Because really, like, space is delicate. Okay, we get it. And I truly understand that Stanley Kubrick wanted a movie where you feel how lonely and slow space is. I would have got that feeling from like maximum like 7 minutes of space with music. That would have been more than enough to convey that. Same with the monkeys. That same like chain of events could have been communicated within like at most like 10 minutes, and nothing would really be lost, and it would just be like overall a better experience for the general viewer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I certainly won't fight you on that. They're way too long. But I do think, that the scenes do have to be there for sure.
Yeah, there's no scene in this movie that you could really cut out, and like I agree that the scenes
you could make them shorter though, for sure.
Yeah, I agree the scenes are quite long, but I will admit that the pacing is very, very consistent throughout as well.
Yeah, it's just hella slow for the whole film.
Yeah, it's just very, very slow. But also one thing I'd like to note for those endless drifting scenes is that it's not just in space. It's constantly intercutting between this glorious, beautiful space and people doing very boring, average things. And it kind of shows how humanity, even if it's an amazing, beautiful achievement, still is living very banal lives and doesn't really seem all that interested in anything that's going on around them. And ultimately, this whole film is a movie about human evolution and humanity as a whole and its track through time. And it kind of shows how quickly humanity just gets bored with itself. And like all of its achievements are ultimately just undermined by humanity's insistence to just make everything so normalized that it forgets all the great things it does.
Okay, I will say, sorry for the fact that I keep jumping at everybody from the hot seat. But
keep going.
That is my
that's
the
job
reason
here.
it's the hot seat.
Yeah, that's your job. And you've been doing great.
The hot seat.
Yeah, so my thing is that I will actually admit the part about it cutting back to like humans doing mundane shit and how it represents the contrast between space and dull human lives. I totally missed that, and thank you for showing that to me. But like, I don't think I missed that because it wasn't emphasized enough. I feel like I'm just that member of the audience who will eventually like not get something from your movie. And like at the end of the day, I do not see a reason as to why these cuts and these points needed to be emphasized over the course of like 3 hours. Because you really could have communicated that in a much smaller amount of time and still have it feel long and drawn out and slow.
Well, I think too, part of it, and part of what I think makes this movie better than Solaris, though we'll get to that. We'll get to it. Is that it's American? No, it's
that I didn't have to read the fucking subtitles.
Yeah, I didn't have to squint.
Yeah, but honestly, like
no.
for our audience, real quick, if you have to watch Solaris, if you want to watch Solaris, do not watch the fucking dub. That will I will save your life.
Wait, is there a dub?
There is a dub. Do not do it. Just watch it with
subtitles.
Don't do it.
Thank God. I thought you said don't watch the sub, and I'm like, I could only find the sub.
No, I accidentally stumbled.
Where's the dub? Oh, like totally.
I accidentally stumbled upon the dub on the internet. I thought it was a sub, and oh my God, I had like the awakening. And it was like not a good awakening. It was like 6 a.m.
like
Monday morning. You have an exam.
Oh my,
You
okay.
like shit.
I just looked up the
It's like
runtime.
watching ghost stories.
I just looked up the runtime for 2001. It's actually 142 minutes, so it's only like an hour 22. No, not an hour. 2 hours 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Which
2
that's
hours
like,
28 to be exact.
That's like your typical Hollywood blockbuster. So I just looked up, your typical Hollywood blockbuster. Batman v Superman is 151 minutes.
Well, in all fairness, Batman v Superman is a motherfucking slog, so that checks out.
Yeah,
but also,
Batman v Superman
I think we should compare
is
more to the
probably
Snyder Cut.
paced about 3 times faster and is infinitely more boring.
I just kind of find that interesting.
Is that I don't even think the question of how slow and boring a movie feels for me. It's not about the length. It's about how much like pointless shit I have to see in the film. And unfortunately, in my opinion, 2001 has a lot of shit that really does not need to be there, even if you want to make it feel slow and drawn out.
Here, I'll. So this is the point I was going to make, which is, I think a lot of it too is that there's this incredible depth to the world. And you see this a little bit too in the movie Alien. where they were talking a little bit about some really mindless, kind of pointless detail in the background, where it's they had one of the like set designers draw up a whole visual language for different warnings and stuff, because they said, well, this is really an international kind of station. Wayland Utonics is
Utani.
Yeah, Utonics. Or Utani, that's right. Wayland Utani is a international company, so these things should be able to be read by everyone internationally. So they created a graphical language to put up little warnings everywhere that never play into the movie. It just fleshes out the world just a little bit more. And Stanley Kubrick has a little bit of an issue where it's as if he's bringing the camera in on a close-up on each of those, the 64 symbols, going, huh? I made it. I put in the effort.
I will have... sorry. I thought you were done.
Well, just that I think the world is so deep and so well developed, and that maybe the issue is that while it's certainly shown in like background pointless kind of details too, and I say pointless lovingly, but like the opposite of a nitpick. It's a nit good. I don't know how to
stab.
Yeah, that's awful. A Nick Band-Aid. But it's those really long sequences serve to flesh out how things are moving, how things are functioning. Everything's so well and so deeply, where like they're on spaceships, and it's like those little details of like a quick cut to showing the air hostess's shoes, and they say like grip shoes. And then she's like, walking very carefully and delicately. So you understand, okay, this is like, there's still limitations here. There's still like kind of they've developed stuff to help them get around those kind of details and adapt environments to make it their own, make it more like Earth, right? More like how you are on an airplane on Earth. And there's so much of that, and they just show all of it. And they probably could have worked a little bit more on allowing that to exist in the background. For sure, that could have definitely sped things up and made it quicker paced. But I think, a lot of that pacing issue comes from how deep the world is.
I will just say that, you make a very valid point. However, I do not think that this point serves as an excuse.
I guess it's not really an excuse, but it's more of like a
explanation.
An explanation of why it's this way.
Well, yeah, but if you think back to something like Alien, the reason Alien as a movie works so well, and I think, just to clarify, we all here fucking love the first original Alien film by Ridley Scott, right?
I think it's the best.
Yeah, Michael
horror film
Fassbender
ever
was
made.
great in it.
I mean, it's not as good as Prometheus.
Okay, good.
But it's up there.
Alex is joking, just to clarify, but
Not quite as good as Aliens, but it's close.
I
Close second.
started off being an Aliens over Alien person.
that is wrong. I can't sue you.
Alien is
I can't
Aliens,
Game over, man. Game over.
Aliens and Alien are both belong on the list of greatest films of all time, but Alien is just incredible.
Okay.
Yeah,
Aliens.
I've come around
Aliens
to
is
liking
the
Alien
David
more.
Fincher,
but
yeah.
I'm
Okay, yeah.
just
So
saying,
the point I was
we
trying
exist.
to make. The point I was trying to make is that we all think Alien is
No,
great,
fuck you,
and
Oleg.
I think that establishing the world is a part of that, because the movie that is Alien, it's a horror movie that is very like nitty gritty, very it's very like true to life, and they make you feel like the group on the Nostromo are just like a bunch of truckers or a bunch of seafarers who are just doing a mundane, boring, low-paid job that you can see like everywhere in this galaxy. And that's how they make you feel that fear, because you see their, like, they establish how mundane and how ordinary it is through focusing on like the everyday shit in the background and in the setting. However, something like 2001 is the opposite of that. It's an abstract film with a lot of like highbrow, like sci-fi questions, very complicated and very, very abstract. There is no real need to be focusing on this world building, because focusing on the world building is not inherently good. Like, I know
No,
it's not a
I
fair
don't think that's
comparison
true.
to the film, but like Batman v Superman is focusing on inessential bullshit the movie. I'm okay with Solo, but I know you don't like Solo, and Solo is also
sucks.
focusing on world building the movie. Like that's not always
Well,
a
no,
good
that-
thing.
That's not. I don't think Solo's really world building the movie. It's fucking take every line that Han Solo's ever said and make a movie out of it, and just figure
Which
out
is
some way to cram a
expanding your
bunch of
world,
shit
yes.
together. Well, it's. I'm trying to figure out how to explain it.
In this one, I think the world building kind of like I think what Alex might be going for is like it actually like it is important to the story or like to the overall just sort of atmosphere of the movie. Like
Well, it's the point of sci-fi, in that it's like it's how you tell a really good sci-fi from a really shit sci-fi, like the Dune book. Part of what makes it so fucking good is how thorough and well thought out it is. Like the thinking behind it goes so deep and so much further than you ever see in the book. And that's what makes it great, is because, and what makes, the original Star Wars so much better than like the sequel Star Wars is that there is thought and design behind the world that you don't see. That's not just like, we need stormtrooper bad guys, so why don't we just make some new stormtroopers and call them like the New Empire, or whatever they're called, Fifth Order, or Fourth Reich.
also
But
when
I will say too, for the length and how slow paced it is, I think that is also kind of necessary for the impact of the film.
Okay,
Which is
I know you wanted to say something. So.
yeah,
yeah,
sorry, yeah.
it was like kind of in accordance to that. One thing I appreciate about 2001 a lot is that it's a lot of show don't tell. Like they show the world like what, and it's not like just reams and reams of just dialogue where it's like, we have track shoes. These shoes help us stick to the ground. This is the food, and we have to drink it because we're in space. They just like show it. They show the lady with the tray. She puts it down. The person pulls out a straw and starts drinking the food. And then it's like, oh yeah, if you're in space, couldn't you like, just go upside down on the wall and like to the next part of the ship? They just show it. She does it.
Yep.
And you get so much more out of like a 2-minute scene of her like walking upside down and then through the door to like the camera being upside down and slowly spinning, which is one of my favorite shots in the movie. But you get more out of that where it's like, oh, I see like how they designed the ship. I see how you like go around in the ship. I see how this whole thing kind of operates. So much better than like if anyone had in the script had said it.
Yeah, even more than that, you get the idea that they've adapted to this world, right?
Or they're
It's
adapting
not just,
to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or they're in the process of, right? So it's like when they have that spaceship that they say, or their like kind of space plane types set up, that they've realized, oh, we can cram some more fucking seats on here because, we don't have to just have a metal cylinder. You can put stuff on the ceiling, shit down on like the sides and stuff. You can, because there is no ground in space. And then they've also tried to make it so that it's comfortable for everybody so that they feel like they're still on Earth, simulating false gravity and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And also the in addition, 2001 is not really a narrative driven film in a traditional sense. It's very much a film driven on experience and on like the sense of living in this world more than anything else. And I think that like what they've said really puts it there, is that a lot of this stuff is more or less about being immersed in the universe of 2001 more than it is so much about telling you anything. It does tell you things, little thing by little thing, and at a slow pace that will probably turn off a lot of people. But it's more or less about just being part of the world that 2001 makes and really being immersed in all the effort and everything that went into making it.
Okay, first of all, to Andrew, I think that is an absolutely valid point. I think appreciating the effort that was put into this film, appreciating like the effects, the production, and all of that is something that is very worthwhile. I don't think I have as much of an appreciation for it as like you do, for example, because I'm not a film student and my knowledge is much like simpler when it comes to cinema. But yeah, I think that's a valid point. I also don't think that the point about like the necessity of focusing on the world building is invalid. However, the thing is, I think the difference between a good and bad world building is that world building has to be naturally woven into the story. If you think back to something like okay, Star Wars Episode 4, or as we like to call it here, the cinema snobs, Star Wars, is 2 hours 5 minutes long, and there is a lot of world building in that film. However, it feels like the film is like an hour 20 long. It just flies by you. Yes, the pace is different, and that kind of plays into the point that it's not just the world building that is important here. But the thing is, that movie always gives you world building, just like Alien, to when the characters are living in that world. Here, it just takes, like, it always feels like a slideshow or just like a video clip of like classical music, where it's just space and they, like, cut to something, and it feels very unnatural, and it draws the movie out, in my opinion.
Well, okay, so this is where I'll bring in the director S. Craig Zahler. I think he only has like 3 movies now. But his first movie was Bone Tomahawk. Have you seen it, Oleg?
Nope.
No. Okay. Shit. Well, I won't spoil it then. But essentially, for listeners, it's a Western, and at first, for the first let me check how long the movie actually is. Bone Tomahawk runtime. Sorry. Yeah, so the Bone Tomahawk is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And for the first, like, I would say probably like hour and 45 minutes, fucking nothing happens. Like, the story is about, hey, some people from our little western town disappeared, so we're gonna go out and find those people. And it's just them walking across fucking open plains forever. And I almost turned off the movie. And then at that 1 hour and 45 minute mark, it fucking explodes into insanity and becomes one of the best movies I've ever seen. And part of why that was so impactful was because of that fucking, hour and 45 slog of, the guy breaks his leg while he's walking, and now he's got to walk with a splint. So now he's taking even longer to fucking walk because he's so slow.
Okay,
and you're just going, Jesus Christ, when does this movie end?
I haven't seen the film, so it's hard for me to judge. But the question to answer here is whether or not that first hour of slow storytelling and nothing happening is really necessary to convey the story they wanted to convey. Because if I want to enhance my experience with a film, I'll just watch Justice League before it. I don't need the film to insert something that I don't like into it so that I like the good parts more.
It's like Nicholas Winding Refn films, like Drive, right? You have seen that, yeah? Okay. Well, most of Drive is not a particularly action-y thing. It's not dialogue heavy. It's a guy kind of standing around looking a little bit sociopathic and kind of watching a chick, like his neighbor, playing with their kid while he's chewing on a toothpick, while techno music plays in the background. And then just at certain moments, it just fucking explodes, and then he, bashes someone's brains in with a hammer or blows their face off with a shotgun. And it's because you offset it with these really slow, quiet things that, like, after 2 hours of that uneventful, like, kind of feeling like you're a slog in space and going like, does this movie have a point? When shit starts popping off with Hal, you go, holy fuck, this is great. Like, you're just going, like, you're sitting there on the edge of your seat as, it's doing it, and they're shooting it like almost a classic horror flick, right? When Hal kills the second guy, Frank, I think his name is. Like they have the pod slowly turn, and it's like, the almost like Psycho, where it's,
No, that one scene in particular is actually great. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just, instead of watching what the pod does to kind of shoot him off into space, I assume ram into him, it cuts to Hal. Like just a picture of the Hal kind of like camera watching. And then it does like the zoom, doom, kind of jumping zooms into Hal's face, quote unquote. And it's just like a classic slasher horror movie kind of cut. And like once it starts doing that kind of stuff, and you have this kind of frantic energy entering into stuff, that's when you start like suddenly those last like basically an hour and a half, maybe was it an hour and a half of like very quiet, nothing really happening. It becomes the thing that's lulled you into the same kind of sleep as the characters. And suddenly you can experience the reawakening and frantic nature that the characters are. That makes, Dave forget his helmet and stuff in the space pod. If everything's just popping off all the time, well, one, it'd be an hour-long movie because there's not much else that happens.
I never said that everything has to be popping up like all the time.
Well, right.
No,
that is not at all my point.
I wasn't saying that, but if it was moving at a pretty quick pace and you're cutting through a bunch of different stuff, or maybe if there was more happening, then there would never be that lull, that sense of you're falling into the sleep of the world of the characters,
okay,
where you don't get that comfortable feeling.
I think you are misunderstanding my point, because the issue with this film is not that it chooses to be slow. There are many slow films that are amazing that try to lull you, as you say, into a certain state so that you will be more receptive to the film's later twists or events, actions in that state. There are many movies that I adore that do that, but I think the key difference, or at least for me, between a movie like Drive, or fuck off, but I will give the example of Robert Eggers movies, not The Lighthouse this time actually, but I think The Witch is more representative of this. There are movies that are very fucking slow, yet they don't feel boring, and of course at the end of the day that's subjective, because the pacing in those movies is masterful, and pacing is essential to any film. And the thing about 2001, as I said in the beginning, is that it purposefully chooses to be incredibly amateurish in all the creative choices related to pacing. And I can't really bash Stanley Kubrick for succeeding at all of those artsy experiments he wanted to do, because essentially he wanted the pacing to feel amateurish. He wanted it to feel unnatural. He wanted the space segments to be overly long. He wanted the dialogue to be dull and boring. He wanted there to be a lot of world building and all of that. He wanted to do it. He did it. That's valid. However, it does make the pacing feel worse for a general member of the audience. And that is why a slow movie like this instantly becomes for me, a horrible slog.
I feel like that is a great point for us to transition on to Solaris.
Should we take a quick break first?
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Although,
Alright.
before we go, I would like to leave one final comparable example that I think, which is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is just a bit longer than 2001: A Space Odyssey, and more or less has nothing resembling action or a plot, really, until probably the final 20 minutes or so. And it's all just about hanging out in that world with these people and just hanging out in the world of 1968 Hollywood with, just like 2001, driving scenes that seem to go on forever, set to classic music, in this case classic rock, not classical. And more or less, it kind of just depends if that's for you or not. But it's hard to deny that, exactly what Oleg said, it's hard to deny that the film isn't successful at being what it wants to be. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I wouldn't say entirely so. But in 2001, like Oleg said, it's a film that is successful in pretty much everything that it wants to do, which is something that I would say probably less than 0.1% of movies can claim to have. And for that reason, if you like the film, if you don't like the film, that's entirely up to you. But it is a success. It is a technical masterwork, and I think it certainly deserves a lot of respect for what it is.